Welcome to Hockey Nights in Vegas, episode 96. My name is Eddie Rivkin. I'm joined as always by Chris Chapman of Fox Sports Las Vegas and the Vegas Golden Knights pre- and post-game show. This episode, like all others, is brought to you by the Las Vegas Advisor, www.lasvegasadvisor.com, by my good friend, Dr. John Pierce at agelessforever.net, and by Joe and Boris over at Marathon Law Group. So before we get to the episode, Chap, it's a really important episode for a non-direct VGK reason. Let's talk Golden Giveaway. This is the last episode that you have to enter the big drawing to win 2 lower bowl tickets, free parking, dinner with Chris Chapman and I at El Dorado Cantina before the game on Sunday, January the 26th against the Florida Panthers. It's a prize package worth literally $1 million just to have lunch with these two handsome bastards. It's absolutely priceless, I say. So we'll give you the easy code to put in, VGK. All you got to do is, wherever you find this podcast, get to the YouTube page. Comment VGK for your chance to win. The drawing will be held Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific time. The winner will be notified immediately and basically has till the close of business on Friday to pick up the tickets at Marathon Law Group in the Medical District of Las Vegas. We'll obviously provide you with the answer. We'll provide you with the address so you know where the hell you're going to get the tickets.
Yeah, that's kind of important.
Yeah.
And their phone number. We'll give you their phone number.
We'll give you their phone number, right? Do your hair and makeup. We're going to probably take some promotional pictures. We'll take some pictures. Don't come to pregame lunch looking like us. I guess that's what we're trying to say. So that's the big ticket promo. We'll do that one more time at the end of the episode. Chap, I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, why is that?
Because I had a friend in town. I know that's shocking to you and most people that I even have a friend, but I did.
Yeah.
I had a friend visiting from Detroit who is an avid and knowledgeable hockey fan and was excited to watch the Vegas Golden Knights play their last couple of games against Carolina and then against Chicago. And, you know, I've been building up Vegas Golden Knights, the best team in the league, and pumping their tires and telling them how great they are and how great they've played and their report card grades through the first half of the season. And then that. Go ahead. Just take it from there.
Yeah, the last 2 games, not exactly the games you want to show someone who's watching the Golden Knights for the first time and say, this is the team that's going to win the Stanley Cup. Yeah, because they haven't looked like that the last couple of games. Actually, we could go back further than the last 2, but the last week and a half or so, they have not looked like a championship caliber team. So I'm assuming your friend was not impressed.
No, I would say my friend questioned my hockey knowledge.
Ooh.
And
that hurts.
I got to tell you, the eye test justifies the question. And listen, my friend saw the last 2 games, but we certainly have to include the Nashville game in the conversation. I mean, they shit the bed against arguably the 2 of the 3 worst teams in the NHL, down 4-0 to Nashville.
Yeah, that's really bad.
With a day of rest, I mean, no back-to-back excuses, no sickness, the full lineup, right? Exactly as the way we had seen it.
And that's it, right? Like, yeah, they've made some adjustments or a adjustment.
Sure.
The last 2 nights, but it hasn't made a difference.
No, I mean, the Golden Knights are tied for first place in the Western Division. Identical records.
Pacific Division.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Western Conference, Pacific Division. The Pacific Division, identical records as Edmonton. They would hold the tiebreaker if the season ended today because they have a better head-to-head record. But there is still 36 or 37 or 38 games left, so it's irrelevant. But what is relevant is the Golden Knights have lost 3 games in a row for the second time, the first time since, I want to say, maybe the 3rd week in October. They've lost 5 out of 6. And there's really no reason identified or identifiable other than they're just not playing well.
Well, yeah, it's the first time all season they've lost 3 straight regulation games. The 3 that you were referring to in October, it was that first road trip of the year where they lost Washington in overtime to Tampa, and then they lost to Florida. But they played really well in 2 of those 3 games. In fact, you can make the argument they probably should have beaten Tampa. But the last 3 nights have been, I would say, underwhelming. I think the last 2 in particular don't sit well with me. None of the 3 sit well with me. But if I had to say that, there was one game that kind of gave me a little bit of positive hope, it was the Nashville game. Like, all right, yeah, they played like shit for the first 30 minutes, but then they were really good for the final 30 minutes. And maybe that was a combination of Nashville just being like, yeah, you know what? We got these guys. They're not going to come back and beat us. Or it was them flipping the switch. Then they played really well in the first period, I thought, of the Carolina game. And it looked like they took their foot off the gas, which was really strange to me because it wasn't like a game they were up like 3-0 against a team that just doesn't play hard every shift. Like Carolina's they're not going to win the Stanley Cup, but they will play your ass into the ground. And that's not a team you take shifts off against because they punish you. And they punish the Golden Knights for doing just that. And then last night, the Chicago game, Saturday night, you're thinking, all right, they're up 1-0. They'll rebound. They'll slam the door on this team. I don't know what the fuck happened. They were down 3-1 before you knew it. And they have to make the comeback. And you're like, all right, they've evened up the score. Nope. Eddie, I don't know what's wrong with this team. I think, like you said, they're just not playing well. There were some signs I thought in that Islanders game, but you're like, you know what? Self-inflicted. They looked better against the Rangers. They beat the Wild. You're like, okay, it was a blip. They'll go to Nashville. They'll go to Chicago. They'll win 2 of these 3 games on the road. They'll probably lose to Carolina because it's not an easy place to win. That's a good team. They lost all 3. And when you factor in the Ranger and the Islander game, I think it's cause for, I'm not going to say panic, right? That's bullshit. You don't panic. Every team goes through stretches where they're just not at their best. But I think maybe people like us are scratching their head saying, what the hell's wrong?
I think the person scratching their head the most is probably Bruce. I mean, it's a number of things that ail them. Slow starts continue to ail them, though it wasn't the case in Chicago last night. Giving up late goals has sort of resurfaced itself as a problem. Taking more penalties than they're accustomed to taking has been a problem.
Critical moments of the game.
Right, exactly. So I don't know. Yeah, certainly panic is not the word. Yes, the rest of the fan base is panicking and, telling them to trade Jack Eichel for a draft pick. But
I wonder where you heard that.
But the reality is that there isn't panic. But if you're Bruce, you've got to be scratching your head saying, what do I have to say, or what am I not saying to get these guys out of the funk? Because clearly they are in a funk. And I don't want to say that they're not trying, because that would be neophyte and stupid.
It's disrespectful.
Right. Yeah. But their attention to detail seems to have gone away. There's been a lot of lapses of concentration, especially in the defensive zone, that have come back to bite them. And the scoring's dried up. The only real, I guess you want to say, bright spots, if you can talk about bright spots in a 5 out of 6 losing adventure, is the arrival of the Tomas Hertl that we traded for.
Yeah.
Right? 9 points in the last 5 games, 5-game point streak, still scoring on the power play, but now scoring a little bit on the 5-on-5. And arguably, he's been the best player on the ice the last couple of games.
Well, I don't think there's any debate about it.
Yeah. And the power play, which was really kind of struggling in a
It
1
was
for
stagnant for
24.
a little bit.
It
Yeah.
was stagnant, and now the power play's coming back, but they don't draw enough penalties to dominate games with the power play,
Right.
unlike
They're
the
not
mighty
Edmonton.
unlike the mighty Detroit Red Wings, who scored 3 power play goals against the defending Stanley Cup Florida Panthers and
Well,
waxed
the
that
the
ass 5-2, but
the
that's for
Blackhawks
another
scored a
podcast.
couple power play goals last night.
Yeah.
So
So, I think that they need some sort of a reset, or they just need to get back to doing what they're doing. But I have no idea how they went from leading the league, Stanley Cup favorite, dominating good and bad teams, to God, laissez-faire is a terrible word. Uh, just not completely engaged and not playing. I mean, not even to a third, I would say, of their superpowers. And I don't even want to say it's concerning, because like you said, these teams go through slumps. It's a slog from
yeah,
September
you got
to
82 games.
April.
You're not
Yeah,
going to play 82 perfect games.
right. But
In fact, you're not going to play, I don't know how many weeks in a season. You're not going to play whatever it is, 25 perfect weeks. I mean, you're going to have periods of time where things aren't right. You look at the year they won the Stanley Cup, they were awful heading into the bye week, record wise. Something switched in New York, and all of a sudden they came back. They had the dad's trip, they went on the road. They started kicking ass, taking names, and they were the best team in the league after the bye week. But my cause for concern is, as you did mention, it's the little things. It's those momentary lapses. And by no means am I calling out Mark Stone, because I'd be a fucking asshole if I did that. But I look at some of the things that Mark Stone has done the last two nights, and it's like maybe a lack of focus. I don't know. He has a breakaway in the Carolina game, and I don't know, and we probably won't know because, I'm not going to ask him about something that happened 2 games ago. But he's on the breakaway, and maybe he thought the defenseman was going to catch him. I don't know.
1,000%. That's a no-brainer. He knew he was getting caught, and that's why he took the slap shot.
He takes a
100%.
slap shot from the dot on a breakaway. Then last night, the 6-on-5, which they're not very good at to begin with, which is one of those things that I struggle with, that they're big. But the reality is they don't have a lot of opportunity to be out there 6-on-5. That's not just something you put guys on the ice and you're good at. You have to have opportunities. And this is a team that has not found themselves down a lot this season. But he takes a slashing penalty in the 6-on-5, essentially ending the game. Then there was the Aiden Hill.
Too
I don't
many
want to
men on
say
the ice penalty.
the too many men on the ice penalty against Carolina. Look, they looked pretty decent. Like I don't know if they were going to score, but it wouldn't have surprised me if they did score at that 6-on-5. But you take the penalty and it essentially ends any opportunity you have, because now you're playing with an open net at 5-on-5, which, well, there's not much advantage in that. So it's the momentary, and listen, William Karlsson had a breakaway against Carolina and he didn't execute. It comes down.
Colasar had a penalty shot.
Yeah. And I'm
Can't blame him. Can't blame him. That's probably the first penalty shot he's had in
he's ever
15
taken in his
years.
life. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
he's not a guy who definitely in his pro career, I don't ever remember him taking a penalty shot as a Golden Knight.
No, I don't
So,
think he has.
it's a situation where you put guys, and certainly Keegan Colasar has done a lot to help this team win games. But like you said, you can't fault him for that. But it's one of those opportunities where you're kind of hoping you convert, because it's a huge momentum swing in the game if you do. They have, what it comes down to is a lack of attention to small details and a lack of execution. Because the Islander game, they were all self-inflicted. Turnovers leading to goals. You look at the Ranger game, They gave up a power play goal because they couldn't clear a puck.
But they were good against the Rangers. They didn't get beat. They didn't necessarily get beat by a team that outplayed them. They got beat by a team that had a couple of good offensive breaks, and Igor Shesterkin
was really good. But if you're going to pinpoint something in that game, it's your lack of penalty kill.
Right.
You look at last night's game, the Chicago game. You absolutely dominate that second period. Then you give up a cheapie at the end. And I don't, listen.
So you're now Coach Chapman.
Yes.
Are you saying to them, I mean, you can't really bring out the riding crop, right?
No.
They know what they have to do. But what do you say, Coach Chapman, to get them out of the mental funk that they're in, back focused and playing Golden Knights hockey?
Well, the first thing I'm doing is I'm talking to my captain and my alternate captains. I'm talking to Pietrangelo. I'm going to talk to Carlson. I'm going to talk to Stone. I'm talking to Eichel. I'm talking to my leadership. And I'm talking to them to find out what's going on in the room, what's the vibe in the room, what are not because I want you to out guys, but because we need to, as a unit, right the ship. Without my leaders stepping up and leading, Coach Chapman is useless. I can only teach so much. I can't go out there and play. That's on the players.
Once they go over the board.
Once you go over the board, there's nothing I can do. You have to make plays. You are a paid professional. This is your line of work. This is what you're paid to do. You have to execute. And I'm going to look at my leaders to lead by example and hope that that's what works. I mean, I don't know what Bruce can or can't do in this situation because it's hard to pinpoint exactly why this last week and a half they were really good against the Wild.
Yeah.
I don't know why you go to Nashville and you lay an egg. You're down 4-0 before fans have even had a chance to finish their first soda. So I'm not worried. I don't think there's cause for panic. You could say there's a little bit of concern, but Eddie, there's still 30-something games to go. You have a group of players who, for the most part, have won a Stanley Cup as a unit. Sure, you have a couple of new faces, Cole Schwint and Alexander Holtz and Ilya Samsonov. But for the most part, this is the group that went out there and won it. Yep. And the core of your team is still intact.
Just get back to it. Ultimately, it's just get back to it.
Listen, and it'll happen.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not like this team. It's not like they are a team that overachieved for
a
half
drift
the season
or anything like that. There's
and
nothing
then
like
reality
that.
sets in. Like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Were we supposed to be here? No, this is a team that knows what it takes to win. This is a team where they won't panic. They won't point fingers. They will hold themselves accountable, and they'll get it corrected because that's what they do. That's what Jack Eichel does. That's what Mark Stone does. I'm sure no one's more pissed off about that penalty last night than Mark Stone.
For sure. So I have a news flash. But before the news flash, that was the big tease. We're going to have a word from Dr. John Pierce at Ageless Forever. So if there's a little bit too much whip in the shaft of your hockey stick and you want to be able to hit the back of the net, here's your answer. But I'm not going to tell you anything about it because I'm going to let my good friend Dr. Pierce tell you exactly what this bad boy is and prepare to be amazed.
This is the Phoenix Pro. This is a home unit to deliver extracorporeal, I call it sound wave therapy. The technical term is shock wave therapy.
Here's where we get to the fun stuff, kids.
Hey, and they applied it to their genitalia, and they found that yes, indeed, it improves blood flow. When we talk about male genitalia, what is an erection? It is a blood flow issue. So if you're having issues and you've gone to see your doctor, you've had your testosterone balanced, and you're doing those things, and it's working great. If you're finding that you're using a medication like Viagra, Cialis, something like that, and you're finding less and less effect, that means that the blood flow isn't as good. Something like this can help to mitigate that issue. So let me break this down for you in layman's terms. If your junk is more like a pool noodle than a pool cue, it's going to make your junk hard. Dr. John Pierce, Ageless Forever, www.agelessforever.net. Don't be shy. Send a message. The first consultation is free. You'll meet with Dr. Pierce personally. You'll have the ability to share whatever it is you want to share. This bad boy works. So, something for you to think about. www.agelessforever.net. Send a message, take advantage of the free consultation, and let's get you to be the best you can be. Chapman, I have news. The Hockey Nights in Vegas podcast has a new fan.
Really?
Yep. Want to guess
Just
who
a
it is?
fan? Want to guess who it is?
We have thousands of fans across the hockey galaxy, but
Yes.
this is a significant new fan. We know he watches the podcast.
Oh, I think I know where you're going to go.
Player Nick Hague, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Nicholas Hague, 6'6", 245 pounds of mean-ass defenseman, has reared his head after being ripped by me in the beginning of the previous episode 95. If that isn't proof positive that somebody ain't watching us or somebody is watching us, I don't know what is. And I got to tell you, it wasn't personal. I was critical of Nick Hague because he's the biggest, strongest, and should be the meanest guy on the roster. But looky what we got here, chap. A couple of dust-ups last night, one before. All of a sudden, Nick Hague is asserting himself physically into the game. And that sort of goes to the point we were talking about accountability in episode 95. Howden got fucking steamrolled into the boards. First guy into the fray to stand up for his teammate, William Karlsson.
Yeah.
Not ever ranked in the junior lightweight, middleweight, junior middleweight division rankings as a slugger. Never, ever been rated as a slugger. But he was the first one into the fray last night.
He was fucking pissed too.
And I got to tell you something. That's what I want to see. Fuck that. Nobody runs over this team. Everybody stands up for everybody. And I don't want to tear a rotator cuff patting myself on the back for the brilliant dialogue I provided in episode 95. But they certainly seem to have gotten a message that teams shouldn't be playing bully ball with them.
Yeah, well, you talked about Nick Hague, and I don't know because I was flipping between the football game and the Golden Knight game.
Don't ever say football on this podcast.
Well, I was. So I didn't see exactly what transpired for Nick Hague and Pat Maroon to drop the gloves the first time. They didn't a second time, but it came close. So I don't know what transpired behind the play, but Pat Maroon is a tough customer. He's a guy who's been around a long time. And Nick Hague, I mean, I'm not going to say he won the fight because he
held his own,
but he held his own, much like he did against, was it Marcus Foligno a couple years ago?
Yeah.
He's a tough kid. He can hold his own against these guys. So, he's not going to get embarrassed. And I don't think he embarrassed himself at all. But what I like about Nick Hague's game last night was not even that fight with Pat Maroon. It was when Zach Whitecloud has a clean hit on Ryan Donato, and Donato took exception to it. Pat Maroon took exception to it and went after Zach Whitecloud. And who was the first guy to say, get the fuck away from Zach? Nick Hague.
All right, I'm going to pat myself on the back.
Uh-oh.
Oh, Jesus Christ, don't try this at my age.
Yeah. You need an ibuprofen?
Yeah, I know. But they found it. And they need to keep their version of grit going. They need to continue to stand up for their teammates.
Yeah, like they
Lightweight,
don't need to go out there and be bullies. I mean,
no,
that's
they're
no.
not capable of that. They're capable of outskilling every team in the league,
Yep.
not out muscling. But they also don't need to let teams think that they can just be pushed around. So
And that's the key.
that's my happy segment. Welcome to the Hockey Nights in Vegas podcast, Nick Hague. We don't expect to see you as a subscriber, but we love that you're watching and that you took note of what Chris and I talked about in episode
Not so much
95.
me, more so you.
So let's next talk about something that's a little less happy. In the offseason, the Golden Knights made a trade for the former number 2 pick, Alexander Holtz.
No, seventh overall pick.
Oh, I'm sorry. In the offseason, the Vegas Golden Knights made a trade for the former number 7 overall pick, Alexander Holtz from New Jersey. And much to the dismay of Mr. Chapman and I, traded away podcast favorite Paul Cotter to the New Jersey Devils. A half a season in, this looks like a botched trade. The Golden Knights don't have many. Usually they involve a former Red Wing, Tomas Tatar or Anthony Mantha. But Paul Cotter, I think, has 9 or 10 goals. Alexander Holtz has significantly less than that. And for the first time, Alexander Holtz has been on Popcorn Row. Benching a player has 2 effects. One is it gets them mad and they find something that they didn't have going before. Or 2, they continue to regress their way out of any future playing time. I personally am very concerned for Mr. Holtz. Not the trade. The trade's going to be what the trade's going to be. It's going to work out how it works out. But this kid got just mollywomped by the coach in New Jersey and by the general manager. And they gave him an incredibly long landing strip to get going and find some of that offense that made him the 7th overall pick. He has not done it. He's not really trade bait. He doesn't, I mean, unless you want to give him away for a 7th and admit that the trade was just a total shitter. If you're Alexander Holtz, what's your mindset? And if you're the Golden Knights, does he have another chance?
Well, he's going to get another chance because guys are going to get hurt. It's just the way it is. And I think he gets first look before someone in Henderson does. Listen, it's one of those moves where you're looking at it and you're like, I think I'd rather have Paul Cotter's 10 goals right now. But
and Paul Cotter's defensive game and his grit and his toughness.
Yeah. Which I think Holtz has shown a little bit of that, but not to the extent of Cotter. Holtz is out there blocking shots.
He's trying to contribute.
Yeah, and I asked Bruce about that. And hidden in all the praise that Bruce Cassidy gave Alexander Holtz for doing the little things to help his team win, he threw in the nugget at some point, a scorer has to score. Alexander Holtz is not scoring. And I think he's got 2 goals on the season, maybe 3. I think that's being generous. If I say 3, I'm going to look it up right now. But, he can go out there and block all the shots that he wants. He's 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points on the season for Alexander Holtz. He can go out there and block a ton of shots. That's not what I'm paying the guy to do. I'm paying Zach Whitecloud to eat shots. I'm paying Alexander Holtz to score goals. And this was a guy who was highly touted coming out of Sweden as being a guy with a massive offensive upside.
Elite.
He's had opportunities in different spots. He's played up and down the lineup. He's been given opportunity on the power play. And he has not gotten the job done. I don't know if this is a temporary thing because they're fully healthy. If this is hey, you're an RFA at the end of the season. if you want to be back, and maybe more specifically, if you want to be back in the NHL, you're going to have to get your game in gear. I don't know if they would give up on him so quick. This seems like a team that would sign him, but the reality of the situation is Cole Schwint was a guy who you picked up off of waivers. And while I don't think you would say he's an offensive juggernaut, I think he's been moderately surprising in
He's
terms
played
of,
exactly to his identity.
yeah. Whereas Holtz hasn't really played to his identity. I want the kid to succeed. I've talked to him a few times. He's a nice guy. I
Very
like him,
nice.
but you're
Gotta
not paid
produce.
to be a nice guy.
Gotta
You're paid to go
produce.
out there and score goals. And, I could like the guy all I want off the ice. I'm not Kelly McCrimmon. I'm not Bruce Cassidy. I need you to contribute, and I need you to score goals. He's not doing it, Eddie. And this is now the second place where he's had that opportunity, and he's not getting the job done.
I think
So
the problem is that he's not justifying in any way, shape, or form playing up enough in the lineup where his line is going to be known as a scoring line. And if you're going to keep him in the lineup, he's going to be a third, but more likely a fourth line. And the fourth line, though the Golden Knights have a rock solid fourth line, and they have contributed with guys like Kolasar and Nick Waugh and stuff like that, they're not optimizing his ability or his talent by putting him there, but he doesn't fit anywhere else in the lineup. And he certainly hasn't justified playing anywhere else in the lineup. In fact, he hasn't earned his ice time at all. And
no,
I know
no.
that's a very damning negative statement, but it's really just the truth. And I think I'm right. And I think the fact that for the last couple of days he's been in the press box sort of validates that the team believes he's not giving them enough of those little things to justify his place in the lineup. And listen, you got to take a chance. You'll have good trades. You'll have bad trades. I get it. But if the young man gets another chance, and like you said, and you're correct, he will, because there will be injuries down the line, the kid better do something. Because if he doesn't do something with his next bite at the apple, you are very correct in saying he might be AHL bound for the next season, because there's really no reason for another team to take a chance on him.
Well, and they're going to look and say, look, you play for the Devils, who are a high-octane team. They score a lot of goals. You didn't have success there. You go to Vegas, who is a Stanley Cup contender, and you're given opportunities to play with guys like Jack Eichel, Mark Stone, William Karlsson. You're not getting it done there either. So I think at this point, if he ends up with 8 or 9 goals, you're like, oh, okay. He had a successful second half of the season. I don't think the Golden Knights traded for him to have 9 goals. Like that would double what he's already scored this year.
Triple. He's got 3.
Yeah, 3. No, well, yeah, score 6, so double 3. Yeah, but I know, yeah, I guess I should have been more clear with that. But he's going to have another opportunity. And Eddie, it might be his last opportunity with this team. We've seen this organization get guys who were high draft picks, and it took them some time to click. Brett Howden being one of those guys. But Brett Howden showed signs. He also had played a little bit more in the league, I think, than Alexander Holtz had at the time that they acquired him. But, I mean, at some point, you've got to produce. And if you're not producing, then you should be in the press box. You're a professional.
Do your job.
Do your job.
Do
your job is to go out there. Look, I don't think they came to him at the beginning of the year and said, we need you to score 30 goals. Like, I doubt that conversation took place.
15 would be nice.
what they probably said to him was, look, we expect you to have and improve upon your career highs, what you had in New Jersey. And I don't think I don't feel like that was, unrealistic. The guy scored 16 goals last year. If he scored 16 goals this year,
Best trade ever.
it's a great trade.
That's a lie, but a good trade.
No, it's a good trade for them.
Right.
Because they would have already got more production than what they gave up in Paul Cotter. And, I don't know what they got into Kira Schmidt. It's so hard to read based on
Struggles.
Henderson because that team isn't very good. The Silver Knights are really bad. And they get it. I know they gave up like 5 goals in the second period the other night. Schmidt was in net. I don't know how many he was at fault for, but they got rolled by Coachella Valley. And I think they've only got like 9 wins through 36 games or something in obscene like that. So that team's not winning a lot of games in general. So I don't know, that's for the organization and Sean Burke to decide what they've got in Akira Schmid. But when he came here, he didn't play. He came in mop-up duty one night, and that was it. That was all we saw of him. So maybe Schmidt is the guy that they're looking at as the centerpiece of this trade years down the road, and Holtz was just a throw-in. But I don't know. Like on paper, when you saw that trade, I was like, oh, the Golden Knights made a really good trade. Well, here we are, a few months away from the trade. And the
New Jersey made a really good trade.
Yeah, it was a good trade. And listen, as a guy who grew up rooting for the Devils, good. I'm glad they made a good trade.
Okay. Before we get to the last topic of the day, where Mr. Chapman and I will put on our general manager and team finance director for the Golden Knights, let's get a word in from Joe and Boris over at Marathon Law Group.
I'm here with Joe Riccio from Marathon Law Group. And Joe, sometimes when couples go through divorce, one of the partners will deprive the other partner of visitation with their children. Obviously, this is never a good situation for anybody. So what steps can someone take to maybe deal with this type of issue if it arises?
Well, thanks, Chris. One of the most important things you can do is make sure that you have a court order. And in the state of Nevada, over the last several years, the Nevada legislature has moved towards involving both parents and finding it best for children to be involved, or parents to be involved with both children equally, both on the legal custody and the physical custody side of things. So if you're being denied time or deprived time, whether it's in a court order or not, you definitely want to take measures to prove or at least show the court that you've been making those overt efforts and that the other side has been depriving you.
So maybe like keeping a calendar or something like that and marking when you have visitation with the child, maybe marking when you should and if you don't get visitation on that particular day.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only could you keep a calendar log, but there's applications that the parties can get into without the court for free that allow them to communicate that the court can look at when that time is right. And then there's other mechanisms that you can engage in as well, such as text messaging and emailing and making sure you're keeping those records.
So one of the sneaky big topics around the NHL this week specifically is escrow. You know anything about the old escrow system?
Yeah, I know it's shitty for the players.
Shitty for the players. Basically, the league and the players split their revenues 50-50. But in case that the split doesn't work out, the players get between 6 and 20% of their paychecks withheld, and it gets put into escrow in case the amount of revenue isn't 50-50. The league announced, I believe it was yesterday, that the escrow is now finally cleared. So when the players get their next paycheck, which is end of the month, I think, they'll get an extra 6%. They'll basically get all the money that the league has been sort of holding from them as an insurance policy toward revenue. That number was as high as 20% during the COVID. So think about it. If you made $1 million, if your paychecks were $1 million, the league was holding $200,000 of your money just in case you didn't that league didn't meet the revenue goals. Here's the upshot. The league is exceeding their revenue goals so far that they're going to give the players their 6% back. They're going to announce the salary cap, I believe, just before the Four Nations tournament begins in early February. The first estimate that we heard was $92 million. That would give the Golden Knights, I believe, about $14 million in cap space going into the next season. But then, being the voracious reader that I am about the NHL, Alan Walsh. You all remember Alan Walsh, the guy who sent the picture of DeBoer's knife through Fleury's back, that scumbag agent, went on a podcast.
Guess he'll never be on this one.
Yeah, I guess we kind of blew that having him as a guest. But hey, plenty of other guests in the sea. He goes on a podcast and he thinks that the revenues are exceeding by such a significant amount. He estimates that the salary cap is going to go up in the vicinity of $97 million.
Oh.
So, general manager and director of finance for the Vegas Golden Knights, Christopher, I don't know what your middle initial is, Chapman.
H.
Christopher H. Chapman. If I gave you $18 million of potential spending space and cap space going into the off season, and with still about 6 weeks left in the trade deadline, are you going to, well, you're obviously not going to be a seller. That's stupid. Are you going to continue the Golden Knights' incredible tradition of going big game hunting? Or are you happy enough with this roster that you might add a secondary piece and keep all the cap space available to go serious big game hunting in the offseason when there's some really good UFAs on the market?
Well, the question is which of those UFAs are going to hit free agency, because there's a couple guys that I have circled who, if they have that much space, I would be looking at.
No, they're not getting Rantanen or Marner.
No, I wasn't looking at him. I was looking at Nikolai Ehlers as a potential guy to go after. Listen, you're set on defense, so you don't need to worry too much about that. I think another guy that maybe jumps out to me, Sam Bennett. He's a really good player. He adds a lot of toughness to the team. Great mustache too, by the way.
Oh, God. But if you're a 70s porn star.
I love it. It's great. So listen, I mean, they're not going to go out and sign Mikko Rantanen. He's going to re-up with Colorado. I think we'll see what happens with Marner in Toronto. But you also have to start looking at the future, because as we mentioned earlier in this podcast, there's not a lot in Henderson that's going to be coming up through the pipeline that's going to contribute and help you win Stanley Cups. But you have guys like Jack Eichel, who certainly you are going to do everything in your power to keep in Vegas. And I think Jack will want to stay in Vegas.
But will want and has earned a significant raise.
Listen, he's earned being one of the top 5 paid players in the league. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. So that's 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
Right?
So
depending on what McDavid sets the market at.
Right. You're not going to pay him more than what McDavid makes. But when it's all said and done, he's the second highest paid player in the league, I don't think that would be any stretch.
Does he make more money than Draisaitl at 14 and change?
Ooh. He's going to want that.
What about
I don't know what
Austin Matthews. McKinnon.
I would pay him more than Austin Matthews, yes.
Okay. How about McKinnon?
Because he does more for my team than just
1,000%.
Yeah. I would not pay him more than McKinnon. But I don't know. I say that without knowing what Nathan McKinnon's salary is. I want to look and see what he makes a year.
I mean, but in summation, he's going to get a big raise.
Yeah.
To
So
stay.
you have to.
6 years, 14.5 million. There's your first guess.
Yeah. So it looks like McKinnon is about 12.6 a year.
Oh, he gets more than McKinnon for sure.
Yeah, I
Because
think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because the equation is now the equation isn't really what the
Based on
AAV is. The equation
right.
is what percentage of the team cap space that they're going to say instead of 14.5 million, we'll give you 18% of whatever the salary cap is. And
Yeah.
that's how they seem to be working the equation.
Yeah. So I think Eichel, I don't think he gets more than Draisaitl. He won't get more than McDavid. But if he nestles in after Draisaitl and he's the third highest, right? Those will be the two highest. McDavid and Draisaitl would be 1, 2. I don't.
Probably.
Matthews is probably up there too. I
Rantanen will
think
be up there with Colorado as well.
yeah. So he's going to be in the top 5 for sure.
Justifiably.
Justifiably, absolutely. And listen, I'm not one of those people who says, "Oh, player needs to take a discount." No,
Not him.
does not. Nope, no player needs to take a discount. I'm watching
Unless-
it. I'm watching it with the Dodgers. You know what? Go get your money, kid. Go get your money because your career is not 40 years like mine will be. You have other people that you have to pay, agents, nutritionists, whoever else is on your payroll that helps take care of you and helps you maintain, accountants, lawyers, all that. So go out and make every single dollar you can get. I will never fault the player for, quote, being overpaid. Because you know what? Every single one of us would love to be, quote, overpaid for what we do. So I will never fault the player for doing that. If he hamstrings the organization, that's on the organization. Go get your money.
So what are you going to do, Christopher H. Chapman, at the trade deadline? Are you going to hold, or are you going to make a minor deal? Are you going to go big game fishing? And I have a name that I'll give you after you give me your prognostication.
Well, I think there's a couple of, I would say, guys that you might look at to go out and help your team. I'm looking at guys who are going to be UFAs going into the offseason, and I would have zero interest in re-signing because, quite frankly, I don't particularly want to sign guys who are in their early to mid 30s.
No.
But for a rental, I look at a guy like Yanni Gord, a guy who's won Stanley Cups. He did so with Tampa. He plays center. Seattle is not going anywhere. I don't think he would cost that much because I can't imagine he's going to stay with the Kraken to begin with.
But who?
At 33.
So in and out. Somebody's coming in. Somebody's got to go out. Who's going out?
Well, listen, maybe you could move Alexander Holtz in the deal. Maybe you could move.
Oh.
Listen, you don't have a lot to give up to begin with,
and you have no draft picks for
the
foreseeable future.
I don't know if Brendan Brisson is someone that they would. I think maybe for Yanni Gord, maybe Brendan Brisson's a little too rich. I don't know. I'm not great at determining the value of what you're going to send away, but I do know that there are players in the organization. You have a couple of young defensemen in Henderson. You also have Caden Korzak, who is going to want to play. He wants to play. Right now, he's 8th. He's the 8th defenseman. He's good enough to play.
With Ben Hutton signed through next year.
Yeah, and he's good enough to play. Certainly he could play in the NHL. I just don't know if he could play for the Golden Knights.
Is it Ben Hutton, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know how much value he commands, but I like Yanni Gord. I think maybe Taylor Hall potentially, just for a rental. The market is bare, I think, for guys but that could be a benefit to the Golden Knights as well.
Yeah, because other teams might not be able to make significant improvements either.
Right.
And status quo. I think that they're going to make a couple of minor moves, I think that there's going to be a couple of big ones that are going to percolate, but I don't quite see how that's going to happen.
Well, they'll be attached to every trade, right?
Every object, regardless of if they're in on it, the NHL network is going to say, well, we know Vegas is in on them or him or whatever. But how about in the off season with the cap going up and Jack having another year of salary certainty? What about a guy like Brock Besser? Vancouver is just a giant steaming pile of shit. They can't trade JT Miller because he's 31 years old and a cancer. He's battling with his coach on the bench on television.
Yeah,
right?
him and Pettersson do not get along.
Him and Pettersson don't get, and Pettersson's contract is gigantic and unmovable. JT Miller was rumored to the Rangers at least twice. And I think the ask was Mika Zibanejad, and the Rangers said no. And all of a sudden, the Rangers are playing better hockey. So that closes off that. Plus he has a full no trade clause. So he's not going to be like what's his face and go to the Anaheim Ducks because he's basically forced to by Drury.
Yeah.
I think I think that there are some upgrades available, and this is going to be wildly unpopular. Probably not, because not that many people really know. But Tanner Pearson is now somebody that's tradable. He's proven that he's an NHL player. And if you can upgrade that 3-4 and give up somebody like him, maybe they do it. But it's got to be, player in, player out, money in, money out. Teams don't want to help the Golden Knights. We know that. But I feel like I think that what we see, again, the proviso, like we mentioned in I think every single episode, is it is based on health. And if the hockey goddess decides to rain terror on the Golden Knights, then everything is off the table, literally everything. But if they have a modicum of health or are basically healthy getting toward March, coming out of the Four Nations and things like that, I don't see a ton of opportunities for them to grow. In the offseason, if that number goes to 97 million, I think that there's
they will spend every dollar of that.
Oh, well, yeah, no, that's the edict from Mr. Foley. Spend every penny, and they will. So if it gets to 96, 97, 98, look out, NHL, because the Golden Knights are going to go spend literally every dollar of it. So you figure hold, and unless an absolute steal comes, that's going to be it.
Yeah, I think so. I don't foresee them going crazy. I think they like what they've got. I think, small tweak if they can make it. I think they're always in the market for a center, guy who could play center, guy who could help them win faceoffs, because I think they really value that. We'll see. We'll see what they do. But I think barring a pretty big injury, Eddie, I don't think they're going to do a whole lot at the trade. First of all, they don't really have the room to do a whole lot.
Right.
And secondly, I just don't think there's a whole lot out there. Now, I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But
all right,
we know they're not going to go get a goalie. We know they're not going to get defensemen. So I think it boils down to forwards and what is out there and what kind of deal can you make? Because if there's one thing, this team's not going to be ripped off.
Unless they trade for a former Red Wing like Gus Nyquist.
I don't think they'll do that.
Okay. So losing 5 out of 6 games, let's talk very briefly, because we have to push this ticket giveaway before we get out of here. The next stretch of games, Tuesday afternoon at 3:00. I don't know why in the world there's a Tuesday afternoon game. Oh, it's Martin Luther King Day. It's Martin Luther King Day. We'll have a holiday hockey game, 3 p.m. puck drop. Then a couple of days off, and they go back to back with the Blues. And then the schedule gets a little bit chunky, not in dates, but in quality of opponent. They go from St. Louis on Thursday, back to back in Dallas. Then the home stretch is Florida with our guests at the game on the 26th. Win your tickets by joining the podcast. Like,
A week
share,
from
comment,
a week from
VJK.
today.
What?
Week from
Yeah, 1 week from today. Then it goes Panthers, Stars, upstart Columbus Blue Jackets.
yeah.
So this is not an easy stretch of game. The Stars twice in a week. The Panthers. I can really say that if I try hard. Panthers. And then a lovely trip to New York and Boston.
Yeah.
So the Golden Knights don't have a ton of time to cure whatever is ailing them. I don't want to I'm not in the mood to make predictions. I'm going to predict that Bruce sorts out whatever it is, and it might be a tiny bit bumpy, but I fully expect them to start to rebound to form pronto, like tomorrow. I think, every now and then they cut to the bench and you can hear Bruce just steaming. Right?
Yeah.
They don't do it too often, and he has no reason to edit his words because nobody can hear him. You can just, but Helen Keller, the blind woman, could lip read what Bruce was saying behind the bench, and we'll just leave it at that. So I predict that the ship will start to get righted, and we'll see how things go. But they're a much better team than they showed the last week and a half. There's a shit ton of pride in that room. Nobody has to tell them that they've lost 5 out of 6 games, right?
Yeah, they know.
They know. So I think that's it. We're running a little longer than we like to, but we're having a lovely conversation on a Sunday afternoon because who cares about football now that the Lions choked like a cheerleader on her first, whatever. So let's talk tickets. You want to do the golden giveaway promo and then we'll get out of here?
Yeah, sure. Thanks to Joe Riccio, my lawyer, helps me out, takes care of me over at Marathon Law Group. Great seats, section 4, which, I don't know how to. Nope, this side. Nope, I don't fucking know. Oh, here we go.
That side, right there, face
right
off.
there. Yep.
Right there at the face off dot where the V is.
Yep.
Just above the glass. Watch the Golden Knights defend twice. We're not going to tell you what row and seats because
we don't want you going down there and harassing people. But yeah,
no, because you didn't win.
They're good. Yeah, they're like right over here,
seats.
right above my hat, basically.
Yeah,
here, right above my hat, somewhere in there.
Back to the promo.
So yeah, like, subscribe, share, comment, tell us how
VGK.
great we are. Yeah, comment VGK, share. That's the most important thing. We want you to share with your friends. And listen, you'll get tickets to the game. You got to go pick them up at Marathon Law. They're down in the medical district, not too far from UMC. Also, you get free parking, courtesy of Joe and Boris. These are Joe's personal tickets, so they're good seats. They're good. It's really cool that he's doing this. And then you also get dinner at El Dorado Cantina with
pregame lunch because it's an early puck drop.
Yeah, it's 5:00 on a Sunday,
right?
So you'll get to hang out with us, fine fellas. I'll probably have a beer with you if that's your thing. Eddie doesn't drink, so I'll drink for him. And
2 beers.
2 Coronas. And you get lunch and dinner or whatever you want to call it with us. So the golden giveaway, courtesy of Marathon Law Group, my lawyers, they should be yours. If you get in a bind, give Joe a call at 702-522. And where the fuck did that number just go? Oh, 702-522-1808. So let me do that again. So my lawyer should be your lawyer. If you get in a pinch, have trouble with the ex-wife, ex-husband, get into a car accident, the person doesn't have insurance, give Joe a call at 702-522-1808.
That's it. 96 is a wrap. We're out of here. We'll be back next week with episode 97. And God willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll have a very special guest, 2 very special guests coming up in anticipation of episode 100. And this is the shameless tease you are not going to want to miss, episode 100. The Hockey Nights in Vegas podcast is going to do something absolutely unheard of in Vegas podcast history. That's a big enough tease. And no, you don't get tickets every goddamn game. Quit being fucking greedy. But we will have tickets in February and March. So that's it. Episode 96 is in the books. Thanks to our sponsors, LasVegasAdvisor.com, Dr. John Pierce at agelessforever.net, and by Joe and Boris at the Marathon Law Group, our sponsors. We thank them immensely for supporting the podcast, and we'll see you all next week.